Greetings all, praise the King. Another part of the series of the beast state. We're dealing with these social media companies. All in it together. They work for the beast. There's these hearings that are popping up. They're not even mandated. There was one that happened yesterday. I'm trying to avoid dropping names of companies and people, but this may happen in this video. So the hearing had a couple companies, Facebook and Shitter. Now Facebook is falling. Basically, these people envisioned themselves, they were going to be the one-stop shop. Everybody, every beast body would join and the whole beast would be connected. It's not proving to be the reality. So they're trying to promote themselves, as is the media communication channels that are working with them. Whenever those companies are dropped, whenever the names are dropped, that's a form of advertisement. So often on the neo-pagan radio, you hear Facebook and shit. You actually don't hear much about YouTube, and that's for a reason. Because they don't want you to think about it. This is the second most visited website, in the world. I'm guessing behind Google. So there's potential. Now, they're basically the only game. They have a monopoly. If you try to set up a website and do what they do, you will be sued. And they will probably win. That's because this is where the influence is, the power. The capital has gone here. Even though the history of this company and its parent company is murky indeed, there's enough details for a logical person to conclude that this is a product of the military, of the evil forces. Now, I separate that because military could be military anywhere, and it could be a righteous military. But yet this military operates for profit. It is a capitalized institution, and therefore it is wrong. It could not serve the interests of the people. It serves the interests of itself. Now, when it comes to branding, no, this company is being run by witches. They are using psychology to alter the way people behave. And their goal is buy-in. The more people participate in their rule, the better the beast is served. And when people voluntarily give their information to these companies, they are feeding the beast. Right now, this company YouTube has a brand image as amateurish. If you're 40 years old, close to 40, and you're making YouTube videos, you must be a real loser. This could have been called anything. Money, they have the power to change the name. It's not as if when the company Google bought this service, it had a lot of followers. And even those followers would have stayed on the service if it had changed its name to, for example, socialmedia.com. But they were looking to keep this image amateur. Yeah. And now that's going away because people realize it's the only game. You can go to, natural news, which is being projected as a rebel gone wild. And, even if you go to Wikipedia, it says, oh, they're projecting conspiracy theorists. Well, you think the conspiracy theorists aren't on YouTube too? But if you go to Wikipedia, they're not going to say that. So, however, even though natural news is being projected as being opposition, it is a man off. And so, always keep in mind these manufactured oppositions, because so long as they exist, then the company can always play the card that, hey, if they don't like us, they could use another service. I myself tried to sign up for natural news and it did not work. So I would become skeptical immediately. These folks, their objective is deterrence. They'd rather deter you from behaving, say, against them, fighting against them, than force you to. Because if they force you to, it's like the martyrs. Our faith began to grow. So they're hoping that you just go away on your own. Yeah. Or they can provoke you to say something that may be threatening, for example, and eliminate you that way. But if you look this company up on Wikipedia, it will tell you that they have the authority to eliminate accounts. And it states for these reasons. I mean, the language is always important because it's not going to tell you they have eliminated the accounts for these reasons or they only eliminate the accounts for these reasons. It just says that these are basically some reasons, whether they're used or not. That's important because even as I talked to somebody recently that was telling me, oh, YouTube, they can get rid of people's accounts, they can get rid of videos. So he was basically on the tip that it can't be trusted. So that made me realize that there's a rumor going around that YouTube is deleting people's accounts. And if you didn't know, there's that recent case with, drop the name, Jones. Jones is now in court or whatever. It's not probably even a real court, you see. But these are PRs, publicity stunts, so that it becomes a spectacle and it leaves an impression, which is this branding on individuals. And that, in return, becomes the conditioning. It is the culture. And this is the perception, the message that's sent is that, for example, Jones, he's the real rebel. He's a badass. And I use that in quotes because I agree. But you know what I'm saying? He want to make himself appear to be opponent to. Now you tell me, what is he opponent to? You see, that's the confusion. He can't be really an opponent to the government because he really hasn't called for any war against this government. So he's half retarded. I mean, what else could we say? So they're going to use these fellas to project this perception that there's these forces, you know, that are repelling each other, and this forms a universe. Battery ran out. I'm trying to remember where we left off. Manufactured opposition is not a conspiracy theory in the sense that people get together and they plan, you know, what they're going to do. These people just have specific roles. As part of the conditioning, there's a specific outcome, and part of these operations is to find what the outcome is through what they call predictive analysis. I categorize this under soothsaying. And these are soothsayers, as we stated. They're pagan. And they're looking for the populations to act or behave in a certain way. Act is probably appropriate because most of what the populations do is an act. And people really know truth inside, and yet they choose not to act upon that knowledge, yet rather on fear. Fear that if they do what is right by speaking about this truth, then they'll be devoured. And this is that force that we could call the beast state. And so these individuals like Jones, he's operating on behalf of, for example, the Bircher Society. And these are the institutions, as we've discussed, that are able to manipulate this outcome, to form these conditions of the culture. Now, it's not in the favor of this beast force for all these cultures to replicate each other, because then the beast becomes obvious. Everyone's programmed and we're all, you know, this is why the language is used, like Orwellian, to make people think that this is what it's like in a beast state. That this is also giving credence to the author, Orwell, which is another agent. But this is to take away from truth, which is in Scripture. And so once these conditions are in place, you can predict what the outcomes are going to be. A critical component is to obtain the data, the most amount of data, which is the information, and that's in return satisfying the appetite of the monster. This company is basically positioning itself as not trustworthy to the enemies of the beast, and yet trustworthy to the servants. This is the branding. When you put these videos out, you can either do so knowing you have support, or not having confidence, and all the energy that's put into it could just be wiped away. So it's not exactly catapulting freedom fighters to join. This is why it's advisable, if you make videos, to save everything on a CD, because even those memory sticks are manipulated. People could wipe all the data off of them. The CD is not easy to wipe off of. So, and a floppy disk is even more difficult, because the floppy disks aren't able to keep the data that's necessary to make videos. So this is the process of incentivization to move people in a particular direction, as we discussed, towards worshiping and serving the beast. The ruling rulers realize this is dangerous. It has a potential to be dangerous. It has a potential to get away. So that these hearings now take place, in the effort to pass more legislation to restrict, not the so-called freedom of speech, yet the accessibility, so that these videos just won't get out to the public. And even if they do, that most likely it won't be done to support the cause, because they're going to be categorized in this kind of conspiracy theory realm, as if people are no longer able to think and to speak, that this is not allowed no more. That somebody, and now it's a machine. The AI is going to decide what gets seen. You know what they're afraid of? They're afraid of nature.